Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Now we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 22nd of December 2018, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. And so now with this, let us start with the first article. Now we have taken the lead editorial from the editorial page on page 6. Now what this article talks about is that institutional reforms are required to safeguard privacy of individual users on social media platforms such as Facebook. Now there are three aspects that we're going to understand from this article. First is the current problems that have been highlighted by the author. The second aspect that we're going to understand is the Indian response to these problems. And the third and the final aspect that we're going to understand from this article is the author's recommendation with regards to safeguarding the privacy of individual users on social media platforms such as Facebook. Now this article should be seen from the perspective of two syllabus parts of a UPSC examination. First is with regards to GS paper 2 within the section governance, and secondly from the perspective of GS paper 3 within the section security, whereby a related question has already been asked in GS paper 3 of the 2018 mains examination with regards to protection of personal data in cyberspace. And the question was asked in the context of the Justice B.N. Sri Krishna Committee report. Now there are three main problems which the author has highlighted, which compromise the privacy of individual users on social media platforms. Now the first problem highlighted by the author is of privacy breaches, whereby what is happening is that user data is being leaked through the hacking of social media platforms. The second problem highlighted by the author is the misinformation campaign that is being run on social media platforms, whereby there has been a growing trend of fake news that is being circulated on social media platforms such as Facebook, apart from the use of social media platforms for political campaigning, such as the recent influence of Russia on the US elections. And the third and the final problem which has been highlighted by the author is that there has been sharing of user data without informed consent. Now with regards to this, the author has highlighted a recent change in privacy policy of WhatsApp, whereby various user data that is being generated on WhatsApp would be shared with Facebook, but it has not been made clear as to which form of data would be shared between both the social media platforms. Apart from this, the social media platforms also share their user data with third parties for running ad campaigns. So an example of this is that if you have searched something on Google, but what would happen is that a similar ad would appear when you're watching YouTube videos. Now Google and YouTube are owned by the same company, but are different internet platforms. And what is happening is that there is a sharing of user data without informed consent. And it is within that regard that the author has also given the example of WhatsApp and Facebook, which are also owned by the same company. But what is happening is that the user data which is generated on WhatsApp is being shared with Facebook. But this user data is being shared without any form of informed consent, whereby individual users like you and me who use WhatsApp are not informed as to what form of data is being shared with Facebook. And therefore, this is the third and the final problem which the author has highlighted with regards to the compromising of privacy of individual users on social media platforms. Now, it is within that regard that the author has provided the Indian response. Now, the author is trying to say that India's investigatory outcomes, measured regulatory responses, or parliamentary processes which should have safeguarded a user's privacy is currently weak. And according to the author, the main reason for the current weakness to respond to such problems which compromise the privacy of an individual user on social media platform is the lack of an institutional capacity to respond to such challenges or such problems. And it is within that regard that the author has provided various causes, which are mainly examples of India's lack of investigatory outcomes, measured regulatory responses, or parliamentary processes to effectively safeguard the privacy of individual users on social media platforms. The first reason given by the author is that India's response has been slow and reactionary in nature, whereby what is happening according to the author is that first the problem comes up, and it is after that the government of India tries to form a response to this problem, and even this response is slow in nature. And it is within that regard that the author is saying that India is not forming any form of preemptive steps to tackle any future problems that may come up. And according to the author, the Indian government waits for the problem to appear and then tries to form a solution to tackle the problem, and even the formation of the solution is slow in nature. The second cause of the problem highlighted by the author is that there is no data protection authority in India. The third cause highlighted by the author is that the right to privacy judgment was expected to lead to greater accountability of social media platforms such as Facebook. But what has happened is that no action has been taken to effectively implement the right to privacy judgment with regards to protecting the privacy of individual users on social media platforms. Now, apart from this, the author has also given three examples to show how India's investigatory outcomes, measured regulatory responses, or parliamentary processes are currently weak in safeguarding a user's privacy. Whereby, as you might remember, there was recently a report that Cambridge Analytica had used the personal data of Indian Facebook users to target them with political campaign, and this was done without the knowledge of the individual user. Now, this case is currently being investigated by the Central Bureau of Investigation or the CBI. And what the author is trying to highlight that this case is still in the preliminary stage. Apart from this, the author has also highlighted that the Data Protection Bill, which is based on the Justice Sri Krishna Committee report, has not been listed in the ongoing winter session of Parliament. And the third and the final example which has been given by the author is that the Government of India in itself has prioritized data collection and privacy impacting legislation such as the DNA Technology Regulation Bill. And therefore, these are the three main examples which have been given by the author. First, with regards to the lack of India's investigatory outcomes, in which the author has given the example of the misuse of personal data which was undertaken by Cambridge Analytica, in which the data of Indian users on Facebook was used for political campaigning, and this misuse of personal data of Indian users is still in the preliminary stage of investigation and being undertaken by the CBI. And similarly, the author has also given an example with regards to the weak measured regulatory responses in safeguarding a user's privacy, whereby the Data Protection Bill, based on the Justice Sri Krishna Committee report, has not been listed for the ongoing winter session of Parliament. And similarly, the author has given an example with regards to the weak parliamentary processes, whereby the government in itself is focused on data collection and has also introduced legislation which impacts privacy of individuals, such as the recently introduced DNA Technology Regulation Bill. And therefore, it is based on this that the author has given the recommendation to develop and prioritize institutions of governance which protect the privacy of users based on a comprehensive privacy law. So, hopefully, by now, you have understood the three main aspects that have been given by the author. First, with regards to the current problems in safeguarding the privacy of individual users on social media platforms. Secondly, you also understand the Indian response in tackling these current problems. And lastly, you also understand the generalized recommendation given by the author with regards to safeguarding privacy of individual users on social media platforms. Now, based on this, a main question for your practice is what are the current problems in safeguarding privacy of user data on social media platforms? Examine the reasons for the current shortfall in India's response to ensure data privacy of its users, whereby you can answer this question with the help of the article and the explanation given in this section. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this editorial from the editorial page on page 6. Now this editorial provides two aspects. Now the first aspect that this article provides is a summary of the recent visit by Ibrahim Mohammed Solih, who is the president of Maldives, when he visited India last week. And the second aspect that this article provides are various recommendations which has been given by the author with regards to India's policy in the Indian Ocean region. Now this article in the upcoming explanation should be seen from the perspective of GS Paper 2 within the section International Relations and within the subsection India and its Neighborhood Relations, more specifically India's relationship with Maldives. Now apart from this, what you should also do is take a look at the Daily News Simplified of 18th of December, in which the various concerns of India with regards to Maldives has been explained, whereby both this previous and this upcoming explanation would give you a comprehensive understanding of India's relationship with Maldives. So now let us first understand as to the summary given by the author of the recent visit of the President of Maldives to India. Now when providing the summary of the recent visit of the Maldives President to India, the author has mainly highlighted the various areas of cooperation that have been discussed or agreed upon during the recent visit. Wherein the first area of cooperation that has been highlighted by the author is that the current president of Maldives has assured India that Maldives is going to follow the India First policy. whereby what had happened is that during the previous period of President Yamin, Maldives had gotten closer to China, and this raised various security concerns for India. Whereby what has happened now is that the current Maldives President Solly has assured India that it is going to follow India First policy, whereby Maldives is going to protect the security concerns of India. Now, it does mean that Maldives is going to prioritize India's concerns, especially India's security concerns, over other countries. But it does not mean that Maldives would compromise with its national interest to follow the India First policy. Now, apart from this, as you already know, India is going to provide $1.4 billion in aid to Maldives. And this aid package would be used for development projects in the field of healthcare, education, water, and sanitation. Now, India is also going to support the membership of Maldives to the Commonwealth nation and to the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Now, what had happened was that President Yamin issued an emergency in Maldives. And after the emergency was imposed by the former President Yamin of Maldives, various countries, including India and the Commonwealth countries, put pressure on the former President Yamin to lift this emergency. And therefore, because of this, President Yamin made sure that Maldives left the Commonwealth group of nations. Now, under the current President Solly, Maldives has again reapplied to join the Commonwealth group of nations. And apart from this, India is also going to support the membership of Maldives to the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Now, the Indian Ocean Rim Association is an international organization which was formed in 1997, and it includes various countries which lie on the coast of the Indian Ocean, such as India, Sri Lanka, Seychelles, South Africa, Australia, Singapore, among several other countries. And it is within that context that India is going to support the membership of Maldives to the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Now, the fourth area of cooperation which has been highlighted by the author is that India and Maldives signed various agreements related to information technology, culture, agriculture business, and visa arrangements. The fifth point highlighted by the author is that India and Maldives are going to ensure greater maritime cooperation. Now, the Indian Navy and the Indian Coast Guard would coordinate with their counterparts in Maldives for coordinated patrolling, aerial surveillance, and capacity building. The sixth point highlighted by the author is that the intelligence agencies of both India and Maldives would work together to combat terrorism and the growing radicalization within Maldives itself. Now, what has happened is that there is a growing presence of ISIS within Maldives, and this is a growing security concern for India, and thereby Indian intelligence agencies are going to coordinate with the intelligence agencies of Maldives to stop the growing presence of ISIS within Maldives. So now hopefully up till here you've understood the summary given by the author with regards to various areas of cooperation which have been discussed upon and agreed upon during the recent visit of the Maldives President Solly to India. Now, this recent visit of the Maldives President Solly to India would also be covered in the upcoming January edition of the Focus magazine. Now, let us understand the various recommendations that have been given by the author with regards to India's policy in the Indian Ocean region. Now, the first policy recommendation given by the author is that India should form a new grouping with Maldives, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, and Seychelles. However, the author has not provided the purpose or any reason as to why India should form a new grouping with Maldives, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, and Seychelles, and how it would be different from the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Now, with regards to the second recommendation, you need to know that India in 2015 announced the Security and Growth for All in the region, or the SAGAR policy, whereby under this policy, India intends for security and economic growth for every country within the Indian Ocean region. And the author has recommended two goals which can be implemented under the SAGAR policy. First is to address the security concerns of every country in the Indian Ocean region. And secondly, to improve the blue economy of the Indian Ocean region. And within that regard, the author has recommended that to achieve these two goals, India should collaborate with the African countries which lie on the coast of the Indian Ocean. Now, these are the two main policy recommendations which has been given by the author with regards to the Indian Ocean region. First is to form a new grouping with India, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, and Seychelles. And secondly, to include two goals, which is to address the security concerns in the Indian Ocean region, and secondly, to augment the blue economy in the Indian Ocean region within India's SAGAR policy. And moreover, the author has also recommended that to achieve both of these goals, India should collaborate with African countries which lie on the coast of the Indian Ocean region, such as South Africa, Kenya, among others. Now, based on this explanation, a question for your practice is which of the following are members of the Indian Ocean Rim Association? Now, what you need to do is pause this video, solve this question, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now, the correct answer to this question is A, 1 and 4, wherein Pakistan and Maldives are not members of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, and India has supported the membership of Maldives to the Indian Ocean Rim Association. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 8. Now what has happened is that the Rules Committee of the Lok Sabha has provided a draft report, and in this draft report, the Rules Committee has recommended that if a member of parliament obstructs the functioning of the house by coming into the well of the house for 5 consecutive sittings, then that MP should be automatically suspended. Whereby you may have seen on several occasions on the television, whereby various members of parliament enter the well of the house to showcase protest, and it is within regards to this that the Lok Sabha Rules Committee has recommended that any MP who willfully obstructs by coming into the well of the house for 5 consecutive sittings shall be automatically suspended. However, this is still a draft recommendation and we'll have to wait and see on how it moves forward. However, what is required for you to understand from this is about the Rules Committee. Now, the provisions of the Rules Committee is under the purview of Article 118, Clause 1 of the Constitution of India, whereby this article provides that each House of Parliament, meaning both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, may make rules for regulating its procedure and the conduct of its business. And thereby the main purpose of the Rules Committee is to consider matters of procedure and conduct of business in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. Now, with regards to membership, the Committee on Rules in the Lok Sabha shall consist of 15 members, while the Rules Committee in the Rajya Sabha shall consist of 16 members. But the current Rules Committee of the Rajya Sabha only has 15 members. But under the Rules Committee of the Rajya Sabha can have 16 members, and this is one of the main differences between the Rules Committee of both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Now, with regards to the chairman of the Rules Committee, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is the chairman of the Rules Committee of the Lok Sabha, while with regards to the Rajya Sabha, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha is also the chairman of the Rules Committee of the Rajya Sabha. Now, with regards to selection of members, the selection of members in the Lok Sabha is done by the Speaker, while the selection of members in the Rajya Sabha is done by the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Apart from this, the tenure of the Rules Committee both in the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha is not provided for a fixed amount of time. And one of the last differences in the Rules Committee between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha is that the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha is a fixed member of the Rules Committee, while the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha may or may not be a member of the Rules Committee, whereby it is up to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha to decide whether it wants to nominate the Deputy Speaker to the Rules Committee or not. However, in the Rajya Sabha, both the chairman and the deputy chairman are included as members of the Rules Committee. So now hopefully you've understood the various features of the Rules Committee, and you also understand the two differences between the Rules Committee of the Lok Sabha and of the Rajya Sabha. Now, question for your practice is consider the following statements on Committee on Rules. Now what you need to do is pause this video, solve this question, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now the correct answer to this question is B, 2 and 3. Now the largest committee of the parliament is the Committee on Estimates. And while regards to the second statement, the Rules Committee of the Lok Sabha is an advisory body to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And as you already understand, the members of the Rajya Sabha Committee on Rules are nominated by the chairman, and similarly the members of the Lok Sabha Committee on Rules is nominated by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And therefore statement 2 and 3 are correct. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken the first article from page 1 and the second article from page 8. Now what both of these articles talk about is a recent notification by the Ministry of Home Affairs, which has authorized 10 agencies for interception, monitoring, decryption of any information generated, transmitted, received or stored in any computer. And the second article is highlighting that this order of the Ministry of Home Affairs is going to challenge the Supreme Court verdict on right to privacy. So now what we'll do with regards to both of these articles is first understand the order that has been given out by the Ministry of Home Affairs, and secondly we'll try to understand the cause of concern that has been raised by this recent order by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now you should see both of these articles and the upcoming explanation from the perspective of JS Paper 3 within the section Security. First within the subsection Challenges to Internal Security through Communication Networks, and secondly through the subsection Basics of Cybersecurity. So now let us first understand about this order of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now this recent order which has been given out by the Ministry of Home Affairs is known as an order on the lawful interception or monitoring or decryption of information through computer resources. Now the reason this order has been issued is because earlier such powers were granted under the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885, and this Indian Telegraph Act of 1885 allowed interception of phone calls. However, what has happened is that after the IT Act of 2000 and with the advent of technology, the agencies which could intercept data on computer resources and on mobile handsets have not been identified. And therefore, what the government intends to do is to ensure that any interception monitoring of any information through computer resources is done as per the due process of law, whereby what this order of the Ministry of Home Affairs provides is that only the authorized agencies can exercise these power of interception monitoring of information on computer resources. And thereby this order also prevents any unauthorized use of these powers by any agency, individual or intermediary. Now let's say what used to happen earlier is that any agency of the Government of India or of state governments can undertake interception of information on computer resources. But this recent order of the Ministry of Home Affairs has issued that only 10 government agencies can intercept information on computer resources. And therefore, this order provides that no unauthorized agency or individual intercepts information of Indian citizens in an unlawful manner. Now, the first main feature of this order is that it allows central agencies such as the Intelligence Bureau, the Central Board of Direct Taxes, FRAW, the Commissioner of Police, and in total 10 central agencies to intercept, monitor, and decrypt any information generated, transmitted, received, or stored in any computer resource. And this order of the Ministry of Home Affairs is based on Section 69 of the IT Act of 2000. And this authorization of 10 agencies is based on Rule 4 of the IT Rules of 2009. Now, one of the safeguards to protect individual privacy is that each case of interception and monitoring is to be approved by a competent authority, which in this case would be the Union Home Secretary at the central level. And apart from this, the IT rules of 2009 have also stated that all such cases of interception of monitoring have to be placed before a review committee, which would be headed by the Cabinet Secretary. And apart from this, every individual case will continue to require prior approval of the Home Ministry. And what the Ministry of Home Affairs has clarified is that it has not delegated any form of power to any of the 10 law enforcement or security agency, whereby if RAW or the Central Board of Direct Taxes or any other agency wants to intercept any form of information on computer resources, it first has to take permission from the Union Home Secretary. And after this permission has been given, the report has to be placed before a review committee, which would be headed by the Cabinet Secretary. Now, these are the two safeguards that have been provided so as to prevent any misuse of this power and to ensure the privacy of the individual. Now, one of the controversy with this order is that whether it is a new order or an old order. Now, the provisions for interception of information from computer resources had already existed under the IT Act of 2000. And in 2009, IT rules were formed so as to ensure the procedure for the interception of information from computer resources, whereby under the IT rules of 2009, it provided for a competent authority to authorize a government agency to carry out the task of interception. And it is in the recent order which has been given by the Ministry of Home Affairs that 10 agencies have been named to carry out the task of interception. And therefore, no new interception rules or norms have been formed under the new order by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And it is only the name of 10 government agencies which has been provided who can carry out the task of interception. And therefore, under Rule 4 of the IT Rules of 2009, provisions for interception of information from computer resources had already been provided. And it is only in the 2018 order that 10 government agencies have been authorized to carry out interception. And by naming 10 agencies who can carry out interception, the Government of India intends to make sure that no government agency misuses their power for illegal interception of information from computer resources. So now hopefully up till here you've understood the various features of the recent order of the Ministry of Home Affairs with regards to interception of information from computer resources. Now let us understand the various concerns which have been raised because of this order. Now, the first concern that has been raised is that this order by the Ministry of Home Affairs would access a large amount of personal data, whereby the online data is much richer, pervasive, and much more personal in nature. Whereby, under the Telegraph Act, which allowed for the interception of phone calls, what you could do is hear the conversation between two individuals. However, the online data provides every form of Google search that we have made, our interactions with individuals on social media websites, apart from other forms of personal data. And this recent order of the Ministry of Home Affairs allows the government agencies access to a much richer and a much more personal data of individuals. The second concern raised is that the Supreme Court, in the right to privacy judgment, had asked the Government of India to always balance individual privacy and the legitimate concerns of the state. But what is happening under the order of the Ministry of Home Affairs is that the government has hugely devalued individual privacy. The third concern raised is that there is no common thread among the various agencies who have been provided with the power of interception, wherein RAW, which handles external security of India, while the Central Board of Direct Taxes handles financial transactions, and there is no common thread among the 10 agencies who have been provided with the power of interception. The fourth concern raised is that the order did not provide the procedure or the quantum of period for which a person's private data could be intercepted, whereby the rules with regards to interception of data on computer resources is vague in nature, and this may allow for its misuse. And the fifth and the last main concern that has been raised is that the interception order only provides safeguards on whom to intercept, and it does not provide any safeguard with regards to methods of interception or the amount or the form of data that can be intercepted. Now, these are the five main concerns which have been raised with regards to the recent order of the Ministry of Home Affairs on the interception of data on computer resources. Now, you have to understand that this is currently an evolving news, wherein you'll have to wait and see on how this news moves forward. But hopefully, you've understood as to the recent order of the Ministry of Home Affairs with regards to the interception monitoring of information through computer resources. And so, now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken the first image from page 1 and the second article from page 5. Now what both of these articles talk about is the development index which has been released by the Niti Aayog with regards to sustainable development goals. Now we'll try to understand the Sustainable Development India Index baseline report of 2018 from the perspective of your prelims examination. Now if you want to understand on how questions on indexes have been asked in the previous year prelims examination, what you can do is watch the Daily News Simplified video of 3rd of December, which provides questions that have been asked in the past 3 years with regards to indexes. And the link to this video of 3rd of December is provided in the description section. So now let us understand about the Sustainable Development India Index. Now the first aspect that you need to understand is who prepares the SDG India Index. Now this index is prepared by the Niti Aayog in collaboration with the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Apart from this, it also includes the Global Green Growth Institution and the United Nations. However, this Sustainable Development Index report is released only by the Niti Aayog. So if a question is asked in the prelims examination as to who prepares the Niti Aayog report, you should know that it also includes the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, the Global Green Growth Institution, and the United Nations in India. Whereby in most of the newspaper articles, what you'll find is the mentioning of only Niti Aayog with regards to the SDG India Index report. Now the main purpose of the SDG India Index report is first to measure the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals within state and union territories within India. ensure both competitive and cooperative federalism in India. And apart from this, it also helps in highlighting the various data gaps with regards to the measurement of sustainable development goals in India. And therefore, it helps the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation to further improve its statistical systems at the national and the state level. Now, there's one unique feature that you need to remember with regards to this index, whereby there's 17 sustainable development goals. However, the SDG India Index measures only 13 of the 17 sustainable development goals, whereby it does not measure the progress on the sustainable goal number 12, 13, 14, and 17, which means that it does not measure responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, and partnership for the goals. Now, these are the four main aspects that you need to remember about the SDG India Index report, especially with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. Now, question for practice is which of the following parameters are measured in the SDG India Index report? Now, as you already understand, pause this video, solve this question, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now, the correct answer to this question is C 1, 2, and 3, wherein achieving gender equality is part of sustainable goal number 5, while ending poverty is sustainable goal number 1, and ending hunger is sustainable goal number 2, while preserving terrestrial ecosystem is sustainable goal number 15. And all three parameters are measured in the SDG India Index report of 2018. And therefore, with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, apart from understanding some of the articles in depth, what we'll do is understand some of the articles which have been taken in the daily news headlines in brief, both from the perspective of your prelims and your mains examination. Now, starting from page 1, we have already discussed the news on data interception. And similarly, we have also discussed the news with regards to the Niti Aayog report. So, thereby moving onwards, now, one of the news that has been taken is with regards to the death of an Assamese singer. However, we would not be analyzing or looking into this news from the perspective of your UPSC examination. Now, from page 5, we have already discussed the Niti Aayog report released on the Sustainable Development Goals. And therefore, moving onwards, from page 5, one of the news that has been taken is can Arunachal's tallest tree build a road? Now, what is happening is that residents of Kalak village in the Siang district of Arunachal Pradesh have developed a track to the largest tree in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, whereby this tree is known as Atang Ane. Now, the residents of the Kalak village are hoping that the government of Arunachal Pradesh will build a road to the Atang Ane tree so as to improve tourism in the area. Now, the second fact that is important from this article is that the Atang Ane tree is basically a rubber tree. Now, this Atang Ane tree is located in the subtropical forest range of Arunachal Pradesh. And the last fact that you need to remember is that the government of Arunachal Pradesh has launched a tourism program known as Expedition Atang Ane. Now, you have to understand that this is a very small and a very specific form of news. But hopefully, you have understood the four main facts that are required to be understood about Atang Ane. And so, thereby moving onward. Now, from the editorial page on page 6, we have already discussed in depth the lead editorial. And similarly, we also understood the editorial with regards to Maldives. Now, apart from this, one of the editorials which has also been taken in daily news headline is with regards to the decision undertaken by Donald Trump to pull out US troops out of Syria. Now, you need to understand that the United States has only about 2,000 troops in Syria, and these 2,000 troops are also not directly involved in ground battles, wherein what these 2,000 US troops are doing are providing support to the Syrian Democratic Forces and also to the Kurdish rebel groups who have been at the forefront in the fight against ISIS. Now, you have to understand that this yellow region given in the map is mainly a Kurdish dominated area in Syria, and it was the Kurdish forces that were the main military force who had fought against ISIS and were able to defeat ISIS within Syria and in Iraq. Now, United States also wanted to fight against ISIS both in Syria and in Iraq, and therefore the US forces were helping the Kurdish rebels in their fight against ISIS. Now, you also have to understand that the Kurdish dominated area of Syria also shares a border with Turkey, and both the Kurdish rebels and the government of Turkey are also engaging in hostilities. And it has been argued that if the United States withdraws from Syria, it would allow the Turkish government to continue and increase their hostilities against the Kurdish dominated areas in Syria. And this would again allow ISIS to strengthen its position in Syria. Now, apart from this, the Syrian government, which controls the green shaded area in this map, are being supported by Russia and by Iran. And the Syrian government and Russia and Iran have been in opposition to the US role within Syria. And one of the concerns that has been raised is that if United States withdraws from Syria, it would allow the complete control of Russia and Iran over the Syrian territory. Now these are the two main concerns that have been raised if the United States withdraws from Syria. First is that it weakens the Kurdish forces within Syria, and secondly, it improves the position of the Syrian government and Russia and Iran within Syria. Now you have to understand that this news is currently in transition. Wherein we'll have to wait and see as to whether the United States actually withdraws from Syria or not. And apart from this, you should understand this article from a general understanding of what is going on in the world. And currently, it does not form a strong part of your UPSC examination, since this news does not strongly impact India's national interest. And so, therefore, moving onward, from page 8, we have already understood the various concerns with regards to the recent order of the Ministry of Home Affairs. And so, therefore, moving onward, again from page 8, we have also understood with regards to the Rules Committee. And apart from this, one more news has been taken in daily news headlines, which reads that central teams assessing drought damage in 6 states. Now, due to shortage in rainfall, 3 states in the Deccan Plateau, which is Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh, as well as the states of Gujarat, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, have been declared drought hit. And with regards to this, an interministerial team is visiting the 6 states to assess the impact of the drought. Now you have to understand that this news is also in transition, and currently it does not provide any form of relevant information that can be understood or remembered with regards to your UPSC examination, and so thereby moving onward. Now from page 9, one of the news that has been taken is regards to India reminds China of peace. Now India has said that peace and tranquility are important parameters which are required for continuous development between India and China. Now, the main aspect that this article talks about is the Wuhan spirit, wherein India and China conducted the Wuhan summit in April of 2018, and the outcomes of this informal summit is known as the Wuhan spirit, wherein there are three main aspects of the Wuhan spirit. Wherein the first aspect is that India and China endorse the importance of maintaining peace and tranquility in all areas of the India China border. Secondly, India and China also agreed to building an open, multipolar, pluralist, and participatory global economic order so as to create the conditions necessary for an Asian century. Whereby currently what is happening is that the current world order is being led by the Western countries. And what India and China decided in the Wuhan summit is to form an Asian century whereby the countries of Asia such as China, India, among other, form an important role in the evolution of a new world order. And the third main aspect of the Wuhan spirit was that India and China would conduct joint economic projects in South Asia, whereby both countries have decided to begin joint economic projects from Afghanistan. Now, this is one of the last news that has been taken in the daily news headlines, whereby almost all of the articles which have been taken in daily news headlines have been discussed either in depth or in news in brief. And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.